Yesterday, I'd been caddying golf bags up and down hills for 5 hours, making $2 an hour, and I figured I'd thrown my life away. I had to do something to be successful, because I knew if I was going to go to college, I was going to have to help pay for it. When I saw a guy out sealing his driveway, putting that hot tar emulsion liquid on his driveway, I said, you know what? They'll hire a young kid to do that. I went home, I typed up a letter, handed it out to my neighbors. My first day I had 10 jobs. And then I talked my mother into taking me down to Kmart. And we bought those 5-gallon barrels of tar. I came home, got my little red wagon, and I went all over my neighborhood. Well, you know what? The next year I'm 15. Not even sure I had a license yet, but you know what? I needed a truck because I wanted to start doing parking lots. So I called up my Uncle Billy Byrne, who owned Byrne Dairy, and said, Uncle Billy, you got to have a couple old trucks somewhere. He said, yeah, we got a depot about 20 miles out of town, 30, 40 old trucks. We'll go look at them someday, Terry. I said, no, Uncle Billy, we're going today. He said, I'm busy, we're not going today. I said, well, fine, I'm going today. So I had a buddy drive me out, found all the old trucks, looked around for about a half an hour, found the truck with the least rust on it, worked on it for about an hour. I was good at fixing up engines, and I put oil and gas and spark plugs, and I climbed into the cab of that truck, folks. And I remember like it was yesterday, and I still get goosebumps when I think about it. And when I turned that key, and that engine roared to life, I was in business. I was an entrepreneur. And let me tell you this, that sense of opportunity I had is what I want for every young child in Virginia, to have that same opportunity to carry the power. Since that time, I've tried my hand at starting, running, and investing in a wide variety of businesses. And along the way, I've learned a lot of key lessons. First, risk is inherent in our economy. Second, innovation isn't easy. But I've also learned how to create a job and how to respond to a changing economy. Today, Virginia finds herself at a unique crossroads. We did a lot better than many other states during the last Great Recession over the last 4 years. We did it partly because we are the #1 recipient of federal dollars. But now, the stimulus is over, the Pentagon is drawing down its overall spending, and the sequester looks like it's here to stay for the year. In Hampton Roads, federal spending is 50% of their economy. Here in Northern Virginia, it's a little more than a third. So the next 4 years in Virginia could even be more challenging than the last. It matters who serves as governor. And it matters that they understand the need to diversify and strengthen every region of our economy in the face of these new headwinds, and understands the tools that we have to deal with it. And frankly, it matters that the message that we send to potential employers and great innovators all over the world, that we here in Virginia, that we're open for business, and that we are welcoming to all. In Virginia, we have got to put jobs first, and folks, that's why I'm running for governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I want to thank my great friend of 33 years, Senator Mark Warner, for that great introduction. Mark, as you know, has had both hands full and one hand tied behind his back by the United States Senate as he's tried to help steer our great nation to fiscal health. And it's his focus on a bipartisan approach in making us the most competitive nation on earth that sets his leadership apart in Washington. Virginians are rightly proud of Mark Warner's leadership, and I hope to get hired to continue the legacy of sound stewardship that Mark Warner, Tim Kaine, and yes, even Bob McDonald have established here in Virginia. I ran for governor 4 years ago, and I loved every day of it, except election day. But you know, folks, I didn't give up. The day after that election, like all Virginians do, I got up the next day and I dusted myself off. And I've traveled throughout Virginia. I've been to every nook and cranny, thousands of events that I have done. I've been listening to folks, I've been in their kitchens, and I've been in their living rooms. I've gotten to know each region's strengths and opportunities, and I've learned an incredible amount. I saw the giant warehouses at D.D. Jones in Chesapeake, started in 1928 with a single truck and 2 teams of horses and a wagon. Today, D.D. Jones has over 50 trucks and 70 employees. If we want companies like D.D. Jones to continue to hire, we need to modernize our transportation system. At Northern Virginia Community College, President Templin meets constantly with council of top employers to ensure that students are getting the actual skills they need to get the actual jobs they need right after they get their diplomas. And if we tweaked a mandate that requires them to purchase furniture from the state, Piedmont Virginia Community College in Charlottesville could create 100 more slots for nursing students for the fall and fill every one of them with a student who'd head straight into the workforce. So today, I'd like to spell out what I've learned and how we'll keep putting jobs first during this campaign and hopefully for the next 4 years. Job creation isn't just about protecting bottom lines, it's about creating strong families, about thriving communities and making the Commonwealth the best place in the world to raise your children. I'd first like to recognize my wife, Dorothy McAuliffe, who is here with me today. I would also like to recognize my son, Jack, who just hours ago finished his second year at the United States Naval Academy. And it was an appointment by Senator Warren. Well-deserved appointment, though, Senator. You know, we've lived in the same home in Northern Virginia for over 21 years, and we've raised 5 amazing children. And while our address hasn't changed, our commute to jobs, to school, lacrosse, rugby, football, and soccer games certainly has. In Northern Virginia, we spend 67 hours per year stuck in traffic. In Hampton Roads, it's 43 hours per year. That's a $1 billion loss in economic activity in Nova and over $700 million in Tidewater. So I was proud of Governor McDonnell and the legislators of both parties who worked diligently, who passed the first significant transportation funding bill in 27 years. I was proud to help make calls and to do meetings in that regard, and I was frankly amazed that my opponent tried to block this very important piece of legislation at each and every step. You see, Virginia's been ranked consistently under Governors Warner and Kane as the best state in the nation to do business. But in the last few years, we've dropped. Now, we've dropped obviously because of federal spending cutbacks, but also because of our transportation. We are now ranked 3rd in the nation as the best state to do business. And the reason we're held back is we're now ranked 33rd in transportation. How many of you actually knew that we would stop receiving any money at all from the federal government for our roads in 2017 if we didn't have the state money to match it? In 2017, if we didn't put up $1. How many actually knew that? If we put up $1, we get 4 from the federal government. In 2017, we weren't going to be able to have $1, which means we're going to forfeit billions of dollars. Well, folks, that won't happen now because we worked in a bipartisan way to find a solution that will help guarantee a modern, efficient transportation system for Virginia. Here's what else I'd like to do. Let's pick the right projects and build the best ones. We should review the laundry list of transportation projects from top to bottom and pull the plug when projects no longer make sense. Here in Northern Virginia, that means supporting projects that drive economic development, like rail to Dulles, and much needed improvements to 66. Metro to Dulles has been recognized by leaders of both parties as something that will expand economic opportunity and reduce gridlock. And I'm surprised that my opponent, one of the very few who actually suggested that we stop work on this project after it had already begun. We also need to protect the 2013 bipartisan transportation compromise. There are a couple ways to do it. First, we need to make sure that we continue the funding source here in Virginia. And we need to push Congress to do their job on revenue by applying the same taxes to internet retailers as we do to Main Street retailers. And I thank Senator Warner for leading on that effort. What I've learned from every transportation stakeholder is let's separate planning from delivery. VDOT should be in the business of managing maintenance and construction, and not in setting the Commonwealth's agenda. We can broaden the planning process to include more local inputs. And obviously we can build on Senator Kane's leadership and give commuters and businesses more and smarter options by modernizing our land use planning. K-12 is the single most important tool we have to build a stronger Virginia, and we need to ensure that we are preparing Virginia students for the jobs of the future. I'd start first by reforming the standards of learning. We must ensure that a third grade education actually confers a third grade body of knowledge. But the current once-a-year, high-stakes, multiple-choice testing isn't working for students, parents, or teachers. If a fifth-grade teacher starts the year with a child reading at a first-grade level, and by the end of that year has brought that child up to a fourth-grade level, the current system calls that a failure. We must move toward progress-based data instead of simplistic end-of-the-year one-time tests. If school districts want to break up the SOL into smaller portions, administer it closer to the end of the school year, or give the test differently for children with different learning styles, we should support that. I think it's also time for a blue ribbon commission on the SOLs. Teachers and students both report that the FACS SOL tests don't always line up with the most important concepts that they need to know. We may want to move to essay or short answer-based testing when possible. It's good if a child knows the date we landed on the moon, but it's much better if that child knows about the space race, NASA, and the Apollo program. Let's let our children actually demonstrate actual knowledge. We've got to be more innovative in pre-K through 12. We can increase public-private workforce training and STEM education. For instance, when high school students go and learn in IT for mechanics or EMTs, we need to work with industry to make sure they're getting credit and actual work-ready certificates for those accomplishments. Over time, the Commonwealth has reduced investment in our schools, undermining our curriculum and school services, and shifting the burden to local school districts. It's time to restore and fully fund the standards of quality. We must also attract and retain the best teachers. Mark Warner's bipartisan tax reform made the single largest investment in K-12 education in Virginia history. But as soon as Virginia made progress, other states made progress as well. When you compare average teacher pay to the average wage in our state, Virginia ranks 50th out of 50 states. And a large percentage of our teachers are now nearing retirement. We've got to have the resources to attract the best and brightest teachers to replace the coming wave of retirements. And the final two are no-brainers. We've got to reduce teachers' non-instructional workload so teachers can do what they do best and teach in the classroom. And the wisest dollars we will ever spend, both for families and for our future, are on increasing support for pre-kindergarten and early childhood education. At the higher ed level, we need a skilled workforce for 21st century jobs. 3 out of 5 of our higher ed students today attend one of our great 23 community colleges. I've been to 18 of them, and I will soon go to all 23. They are in the front lines in our economy to prepare our workers for jobs, to retune their skills for new jobs, and attract new employers to the Commonwealth. We enacted the Virginia Community College system nearly 47 years ago. J. Sargent Reynolds, the man for whom the 23rd and final community college was named, called Virginia's creation of the system one of its finest acts and finest hours in this century, and a practical and economic answer to the future educational needs for thousands of Virginians. But today, even these historically affordable tuitions are out of reach for some. and tight resources mean not enough slots created to keep up with industry demand. I know that I will have no higher priority for the next 4 years than to make community colleges the engine of workforce development here in Virginia. Every dollar spent on college workforce training multiplies in a hyper-local way into that economy. We need to free up our community colleges by ending old-fashioned purchasing, work order, and hiring rules. The most common complaint that I've heard of the 18 community colleges that I've been to, every president has said it makes it so difficult with these rules, and that I could create more seats in a class, Terry, or even lower tuition if I didn't have to abide by some nonsensical state mandate diverting vital dollars away. I've heard about $800 chairs and desks that cost 20% more and are not as effective than the regular market rate. That money needs to be spent on training nurses, not on bureaucratic-driven overhead. Beyond community colleges, we need to do more to welcome our veterans back to higher education. We need to ensure that our great colleges and universities understand their existing talents. These are folks who have already hundreds of thousands of dollars of training here in America and abroad before they ever set foot on our campus, and our educational offerings should reflect their service and their training already. We must work hard to keep college affordable for all middle-class families. From Richmond, we can help control costs and fees to reduce a family's debt loads and put more emphasis on financial aid. And finally, on higher ed, we've got to make Virginia a leader in research and development, and specifically the crucial part is commercialization of our great assets. Commercialization of these discoveries at our great universities and colleges. Several weeks ago, I was right here at George Mason, where professors are using cutting-edge nanoscience technology to treat diseases, and they've already begun to take these out to the market. On economic development, as I've said, word number 3 is the best place to do business. But let me be crystal clear. North Carolina, Colorado, and Georgia are nipping at our heels. We've got to work every single day to keep Virginia globally competitive. We need to constantly review to achieve streamlined and smarter regulations. And we need to strengthen our efforts to oversee that our current regulations are working rather than constantly creating new ones. And we need to be cutting red tape and solving problems for business, both large and small. As governor, I will empower the Chief Jobs Creation Officer to be a single point of contact for solving problems and cutting red tape. And finally, we have to build on our strengths and support our current Virginia industries while we push the boundaries to build a more diversified economy. Virginia has always had a unique role in our nation's defense, and we should continue to be the greatest host for our armed forces. Virginia should build on our success in IT to create centers of excellence in cybersecurity, a key new federal priority, so that we can become a national and global leader. The publicly owned Port of Virginia today creates tens of thousands of jobs. Agriculture and forestry in Virginia are $79 billion industries. Tourism just topped $20 billion. We need to continue to focus on expanding these amazing assets. And we have a great opportunity in healthcare. And here's another critical difference between the two candidates running for governor. Let me be crystal clear. As governor, I will accept the Medicaid expansion. Accepting federal funds for the expansion of Medicaid will not only ensure that 400,000 Virginians get access to life-saving coverage, which is paid for by bringing Virginia's federal dollars back to Virginia, but it's projected to create more than 33,000 new jobs here in the Commonwealth. So over the next 6 months, you're probably going to hear a lot of back and forth. But I promise everybody in this room that I'm going to spend every single day over the course of this campaign talking about putting jobs first. I'm going to talk about the plans that I've laid out here today, about strengthening and diversifying our economy. And if you agree with these concepts, I'd ask that you join us in our campaign. If you want to look at these plans, you can see these plans at terrymcauliffe.com. You can follow us at Twitter at Terry McAuliffe. And if you're really feeling generous, you can even like me on Facebook. But let me say this, folks. Please don't sit home. And don't think that last year's election mattered more than this year. You know, I remember it got dark last November about 6 o'clock, just as folks were about to end at the polls. I was asked by President Obama and the Senator Kane's campaigns to go out to Montrose Elementary School in Henrico County. I'd been asked to go out there because there were hundreds of folks in line. We wanted to make sure they stayed in line. So I went out and handed out coffee and hot cocoa and hand warmers. It was dark and it was chilly. And I stayed for several hours with folks. But you know what? Not one single person left that line, even families with young children. Folks, we need that intensity again this year because we need to keep Virginia a leader in higher education. We must have confidence that our children are really learning what they need to know. We must be a state that is welcoming to diversity. We must attract the best jobs in the world, and we must ensure that every single woman in Virginia has access to quality health care.